Whatever feels right.
Man.
Don't always have a go-to move.
Yeah, I don't like a straight line. It's not always straight, right?
Serpentine.
Yeah, that's how I was walking last night. Serpentine.
That's how some of those guys were walking.
Dude, man, it's sidewalk to sidewalk like ping pong. Just it was fun.
That's how I was walking the night after me and Hal Daddy hit the Sunset Strip.
It'll do it, man.
That last one at Whiskey A Go Go, yeah, that did it. Yeah, I felt
Whiskey no, man.
Yeah.
You're stumbling.
It's like one guy said, a good friend when when they go to hand you the final drink,
Mm-hmm.
a good friend will be like, nah, you probably don't need that. A great friend will hand you that drink.
Yeah, no, man. Have
Adam
fun.
Howe was a great friend that night.
Have fun, man. I'll take care of you. I know where you're at now and know what's about to happen. I'm going to prepare myself. You enjoy yourself.
Oh, man. Austin with weld.com.
Mm-hmm.
Good to have you on Cliff's Notes.
Man, thanks for having me, Cliff.
How are things going?
Dude, CONEXPO was really cool. So for my background is all welding. That's my shtick, right? But it's all high pressure pipe and a lot of power plants and refineries. Well, there's some stuff out there for that. This is a lot bigger equipment, heavy machinery, kind of a realm of the world that I never really got to touch on. So I was really excited to come out to CONEXPO and see all this stuff. It's crazy. This place is huge.
Yeah. So tell me, when you're talking about like welding pipe and that type of different thing, I mean, we even had a conversation while we were out in Vegas about maybe like some brewery type pipe and different things like.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think when the average person thinks about welding, you think about just two pieces of steel plate that you're trying to stick together. It's not always some of this high end, very, very critical type welding that you're doing. So tell me a little bit about some of that more specialized welding that you're working on.
What I always like to tell people, because welding in itself the idea is simple, and I try to make it sound like, just don't overthink it. Welding is just welding, unless it's welding. And so that's like the kind of difference, right? Like the most common welding stuff that you're working on, regular carbon steels, just putting two pieces of plate together, it's not that complicated. Doesn't matter really what process you're using, it's really simple. But when you start to branch off into those different alloys and elements, like what I used to work in the refineries, is a lot of 9 chrome, a lot of Schedule 10 stainless steels, a lot of Hastelloy, a lot of materials that you have to do a lot of pre and post weld heat stuff. And then you get away from the steels and move into non-ferrous materials like aluminum and copper and brass and bronze. And then welding isn't just welding anymore. You need to kind of start finding that specialization, kind of like what you guys do. You really specialize in something. And that's where people getting into it don't look at that yet. Just look at the welding, find out the basics, the fundamentals, because it really is that simple, unless it isn't.
Yeah, right. So tell us a little bit, just push in a little bit further on, like when we're talking about carbon steel. My dad used to always joke, back when we got started, we had this old stick welder, and I mean, it was big as a luggage trunk, and it was probably Noah's welder on the ark. And he
was it the Tombstone?
Something like that.
The Lincoln Tombstone, man, that's a classic.
He was like, he said, now I can make two pieces of steel stick together, and he said it's going to look like a bird shit on it, but they'll stick for a period of time.
Yeah,
so,
it is crazy.
I mean, there's that.
Yeah.
But then there's this more like, I mean, I've seen guys take and weld on an aluminum can, for example. Like if you've ever tried to weld it all, for me, I'm going to burn right through everything that I touch if it's more of that soft metal. So there is a very, very almost artisanal touch.
Oh, certainly.
To doing
are very prideful.
Yeah.
Very prideful in that touch. I mean, just like any other craftsman, right? You see a really satisfying weld, like you can really appreciate what it took to make that weld. And like your father said, it'll hold. The old kick test is all I need, So again, welding is just welding unless it isn't, right? Like if you're on the farm and you need to fix something and you got a welding machine and you can get the metal to hold whatever static load, whatever it's trying to hold, or if it's holding nothing, it just needs to hold your, you stepping up on it,
Yeah.
It's great, fantastic, whatever works for you, right? But when you start to focus in on the welding code and start really trying to dial in perfection is when you start setting into your craft.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand that. When I think it's hilarious when people get in the comment section like, oh, I'm a code welder. I weld to API or D11 or B31.3, like I'm a code welder. Like I understand you shouldn't necessarily focus on the code because the code is the bottom. That's the minimum. That's the minimum acceptance criteria for what this weld is supposed to make. That's the floor.
Yeah.
You're trying to make a weld at the ceiling.
Yeah.
Right. So you're trying to avoid all the code. You want to go way past the code. Don't worry about code. Weld every weld. Great. And then you don't have to worry about whatever code you're welding to.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
So with our experience, what we did when we were at ConAg, where we had you in the booth, and we make the coup de grit, and that's the grit, the tungsten grit that drops down in the weld feed.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was like you were just learning on the fly.
Never seen that a day in my life.
In the booth, right?
Yeah, I'd never seen the process a day in my life, right? When I was talking to Josh about it, doing hard facing, like, yeah, I do hard facing all the time. He's like, yeah, and then he showed me like the system. I was like, what is that thing? That's funky looking. He was like, yeah, it puts literal tungsten carbide in your weld pool. I was like, it just sprinkles it in. Yeah.
Who's that chef that does the little salt?
That's wild. Yeah. That's how I was doing at the demos at the show. I was like, it's not like the way I could explain it to a lot of these folks that are familiar with the welding process is it's like sub-arc where it covers the arc completely with a granular flux. Whereas this is like welding sub-arc, but it's not going to granular flux cover the puddle. It's just sprinkling some tungsten carbide in there. And I was like, it's literally putting inclusions into your weld pool. Like, but it looks like this gnarly beast of you're not looking for the slickest or the smoothest weld. You're looking for the opposite. You want a meaty, bulky, stabby, hard, like aggressive looking bead. And that's what we were getting. And it was really cool to see. And like the stuff that y'all put it on, that stuff would get through diamonds, I think.
Yeah. It's crazy because like when we were first talking, we were talking about welding, it's associated with putting through two things together or maybe repairing a fracture or something like that. Where in this instance, what we're doing is we're actually, and I'm saying, I'm making a statement, but I'm also asking a question.
Right. Okay.
What we're actually doing is using the welder to somewhat liquefy the metal so that the tungsten can then be almost impregnated in the steel.
Right.
And that weld is then what's holding it back in. Am I thinking through that?
No, you're 100%
correctly, or is that
accurate? And what I think a common misconception with hard facing in itself compared to like a normal weld that you would put on a fillet weld for a structure or a bridge or whatever, a hard facing weld doesn't need to have as much base metal dilution. It doesn't need to dig deep into the metal. It needs to sit on top of it for the most part, right? This is a sacrificial metal that you're putting into it, and you need hard facing wire to go with that tungsten carbide so it has a good strong foundation to hold it in. If you use regular old MIG wire like a 70S6, that was what I was explaining at the folks at the show, because they're like, oh, I've got that in 70S6, all I need is sprinkling in there. Is no, you're going to lose all your carbide because that wire is way softer. It's not the similar bond that's going to want to hold on to your carbide. So you do need a normal hard facing wire, which I think was an awesome way of explaining it for the people walking by. It was like, you're already doing this. You already have the machine. You have the filler metal. You're already running spray transfer to put this on there. Now all you need is a little tungsten carbide to make it last twice, double, 10 times longer.
So I should probably know this, but when I'm hearing you talk about it, let's say the steel plate that you had there, which was like a snowplow blade or something like that, it has a certain hardness. Then when you are laying it down and you're running the weld, depending on what wire you're running is actually going to depend on the hardness of the weld itself. Am I hearing that correctly?
Correct. So the whole idea of a hard-facing weldment is to put something harder, stronger, tougher than the base metal itself. To put it into a bucket, for example, my brother works for Komatsu, and he explained it really well. A bucket, when it digs, it's a strong piece of steel, right? But it still needs to be durable enough to flex a little bit and give a little bit. You start adding more carbon into that, which is a main hardening element of steel or some other of these alloys, really toughens it up and makes it harder but less ductile, so it breaks easier.
So then it's becoming more brittle.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So they'll want to stay towards the ductile side for the bucket, but so that bucket lasts longer, you hard face it. So where it is getting the most abrasive spots, you put that harder type of material. And that's why you don't want as much dilution, is because the wire is a way different type of metal than the actual metal you're welding on, which is contrary to most welding that you want to do, is try to match the filler metal to your base metal.
If we were just sticking.
Right.
Okay.
Right. This stuff is going to wear out eventually. At least most hard facing does. You'll have to redo it because these machines, man, they're just getting beat up, pulverized.
Yeah.
You know, you grind tungsten carbide for a living. You know what it is all about. So that's what the deal is. So you're putting that hard piece of weld on there, and then you have the tungsten carbide included into it, which makes it just a lot more aggressive. And tungsten carbide is like the second. Tungsten is just the hardest thing besides diamond that you can find. So I imagine that's pretty
very
good.
hard, and it's great at cutting, great at wear. It's just pretty hard to replace in terms of its properties for the cutting and wear industry. It's,
in my experience, using tungsten is all TIG welding. So you use the tungsten electrode and the torch, but you don't you don't include that into the weld at all. It's actually forbidden.
Yeah.
Because if you're welding, you get a tungsten inclusion. X-ray will show an inclusion is a bright, shiny little spot, clear as day in the film. So when you're welding and you stick that tungsten and snap it off and you go to clean it up, that's in there.
Yeah.
Just as you guys dropping it in, it's like it almost feels like a sin to be sprinkling
That's
tungsten
right.
carbide.
Yeah.
It's like you're literally putting tungsten inclusions into your weld, which is something that I was always avoided in my career.
So you perked my interest here on you're saying the TIG weld is where they use the little tungsten. Are those called electrodes?
Correct.
So with me being a scrapper, every once in a while we get some of those electrodes in and they're thoriated. So what is the purpose? I know they have thoriated ones and non. Do you?
Yeah, dude, there's a whole slew of different
what's
types
the
of tungstens.
reasoning for that?
So there's a few reasons. Green is what they would call a pure tungsten. All right. So the color green, pure tungsten, they use those on older transformer type machines, and you still can use them today. They were said to be the best for welding aluminum and welding on a transformer. Well, since technology is advanced, you have a lot more inverter technology. And so you kind of steered away from the green, and then thoriated came out. 2% thoriated is pretty typical. It's one of the, I'd say most welders would call it like the OG and probably one of the better ones. However, it is radioactive. So that's the kind of where a lot of the companies and manufacturers were trying to steer away from thoriated because of, what it is.
Yeah.
Safer for the welder. We're grinding on it. There's dust in the air. You're putting it in a landfill, the whole 9 yards from point to finish. So then the other brands started coming out with, your E3, your purple, or your gold, your lanthanated, your, I think, what was it? CK makes a really great one. But all this to say is it's more specialized for the material you're working on and for arc stability, to keep it really simple. But going back to the welding is just welding. Like if you're just welding like some just common stuff, pick one. Just pick one.
Wouldn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. Just pick one.
So I want to go back to the thoriated question for just a second. So those are becoming less used because, again, they are radioactive. Are they less used? They're still out there?
Oh, yeah. No, they're still out there. I would say like a lot of the shops that have been using it since its conception, they're diehards, they're big fans of the stuff. They don't see it day to day hurting them. So why would they really worry about it?
Do we know what is the purpose of the thoriation? Do we know that?
It helps hold a lot more of the heat. Like the higher you turn up a welding machine and you've got a focused point on that tungsten, the more it could easily wither away. So from what I've noticed with thoriated compared to the most others, it's just really durable as you weld with it, right? So higher amperages it can handle a little bit of a beating if you touch the material or the wire to it. That's what I've seen in my experience.
Okay. So maybe you can help me with something on my scrap sorting. So we have radon machines at our incoming scales.
Okay.
So everything that comes into Tungco, it goes on a scale, and we have radiation detectors right there. So I'm serious. You can have in a 55-gallon drum that has 1,500 pounds of material in it. You can have 2 or 3 of those rods, and we're talking, they're what, an inch and a half long, maybe?
Yeah, that's like scrap one. A new one's about
Okay.
that long,
That
yeah.
well, when they come to us, they're all the way down to about an inch or inch and a half, and it'll make that machine go crazy. And then we kind of get into, I mean, our policy is if you send us,
Oh man,
radiated material, it's going back to you.
yeah, we're not going to sift through it like a needle in a haystack.
Because like I said, it's because there could be a lot of other.
And it's not like you're going to pick it up and hold it under the thing.
Yeah,
pick
correct.
each piece up.
So is there anything you mentioned green and purple and yellow? Is there anything on that scrap rod that my guys could look at and be like, oh, those are the 3 thoriated rods because it's got this on it?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
Usually, like when you buy a brand new one, they're all color coded. One end of it is colored red. Red is thoriated, but by the time a welder uses it, they've grind off both ends and it's worn down to nothing.
Okay.
Heat's got that paint wore off. You'll never know. You'll never tell the difference between any of them.
Okay, so there's nothing on it, nothing ground into it, no way to be like, oh, those are our 3 offenders.
You ask an OG though, a welder who's been doing it for 50 years, he could probably take 2 of them and drop them on the concrete and hear the ting difference. I swear they can. They're like, oh, that's thoriated right there. I can hear it.
Yeah. Well, those guys who have been doing it that long, I have no doubt that they have that kind of knowledge to be able to do that.
But no, it's just all that is the issue,
Yeah. Well, so welding in general, was that something you always wanted to do, or how did you?
I had no idea that welding was really an option until I got into high school and was trying to pick electives, right?
Yeah.
And to make a long story short, I found out that I was better at welding than grades. I was better at welding than being a baseball player, which is what I thought I was going to do. And most of my family had connections or was in the pipeline. So it was like, done, sold. Got into high school, got into competitions. People were telling me I was good at it, pursue it. And dude, I felt pretty blessed because at 15, I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
Wow, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So when you say pipeline, are we talking oil pipeline or what are we?
Yeah, gas and oil. This is, so the misconception whenever I tell people I pipelined for a little bit was that we did not like the rig truck where you see the welder pull up in his truck and pull out leads and get set up and stick weld a pipe. No, we used a company called RMS Weld Systems. They drop a big shack on top of the pipe with machines, robots, bugs, and those bugs clamp to the pipe, and they have MIG welding heads, and they just, 36-inch pipe, they can get inside and out, welded out, 110 joints a day is a pretty normal day, pipe this big around, just leapfrogging each other. It's really, really cool to watch, man. But that's the type of welding that we did. There was no, I was a technician, so my responsibility was to make sure the shacks ran, make sure the equipment stayed together. So while the welders and the helpers, they went in there and they used it, when they come busting out of the shack and it was like, hey, something's fucked up in here. It's all messed up. And I go in there and try to, 9 times out of 10, all I had to do is turn it off and on again.
Yeah, just
I
reset.
felt like just give it the old Fonzie and I was good. But sometimes, man, you open the shack door, there's like the wires just going crazy. There's like a bird nest on top of the pipe that's glowing. There's a fire in the corner, a helper in the corner crying over here. You're like, what's going on in here? There's porosity all down the side. You're like, oh my God. But that was the type of pipelining that I ended up doing. So after that, because I was working so much with robotics and automation, I really wanted to get more of my hand skills back. So that was when I actually dove into teaching. I didn't really think I wanted to be a welding instructor, but I wanted to have as much as I could weld to me. Like I wanted to be able to practice these other processes I wasn't 100% with and fine tune the ones that I did know.
Yeah.
So then I went into teaching, and then it was kind of on and off there, trying to find places that weren't necessarily, because I did the travel thing, right? I went out different states, traveled for months at a time and come back home, and it was cool, but I don't think it was for me. I wanted to try to stay as local to Houston as I could. Yeah. So I was in and out of fab shops, going back to a welding school, teach a little bit. Oh, a project just popped off on the other side of town. I'm going to go work that one for a couple of years and then go back to teaching. And then that was kind of the whole process until Weld.com ended up finding me and turned it into a full-time gig making videos.
Okay. So is Weld.com, is that your baby, or what's that? No. What's that whole relationship look like?
Weld.com is like, I keep saying OG, but they're one of the original YouTube kind of channels for welding education. It's been around for almost 12 years. I've been working with weld for about 4.
Okay.
So long story short, it started off with a couple gentlemen. They were making videos in their garage. Weld.com, they got that URL, and it quickly became sought after by corporations, right? They're like, we want that for they wanted to turn it into like a Rolodex for companies like trying to find anyone.
Yeah,
in the
just
welding
that
industry.
URL has to have quite a bit of
Right.
value in it.
Right. So it was hunted down, kind of picked up by Buggo, which is a track welding company, and then it got bought and sold a couple times. Now the CWB owns weld.com. The great owners. We love working with them. You know, they kind of give us a ton of freedom and strategy around the content that we create, but it's a full-time job for 5 employees where we schedule, we plan all the content together as a group. We'll take titles and stuff from different genres, cooking, automotive, and we'll try to take those titles and twist them and put them in a welding fashion. And then I take that outline and I script the whole thing out to try to put it into my own words. And then, you know, I shoot everything by myself in my little shed. And then I send it off to the editors and label everything so they know exactly how that thing flows. It's a whole process. And these editors we do 1 video a week every week for the past forever. So
that's awesome, man.
We've got it down to a science.
Really cool. So are you still actively teaching as well, or is weld.com your full gig?
Technically I'm actively teaching. It's 1 week of one video a week every week. So no, I don't have a teaching gig, but I do like to go travel to a lot of local schools within an earshot of me if I can, to go do demos. Or the Houston area is just booming with the industry, and there's a ton of high schools and colleges that have events and put on a lot of things that I try to go to and do demos and give back as much as I can as far as in my local area.
So one topic at hand is I listened to a podcast called The All In, and they're big on AI. It's a big focus there, and one of their concerns is universities may have kind of missed the boat a little bit on whether, you know, we've moved away from skilled work. Okay. Sure. We know that over the last 10 to 15 years.
Right.
But now that AI is coming in, AI is likely going to take not the skilled jobs. It's going to take more like administrative jobs, things of that nature. And we see a gap where I live at in Kentucky. We have everybody that has a manufacturing scope of any kind is always struggling to find somebody that is not just, hey, I went to a trade school and I got a welding certificate. What we're talking about is experts. Right. That's like, I know I can put that person on that machine and fix it, and then I can push play, and when that machine takes back off, it's not going to kill somebody. Right. So I'm curious, are we seeing any kind of resurgence in interest in students for skilled laboring, whether it's plumbing, welding, all of the trades that are super critical to ensuring if the U.S. is going to become a manufacturing hub again, we can't do it without really skilled laborers.
Yeah, I guess I've got a little bit of the education system. I got a problem with when it comes to the welding world. Right, I don't believe there is a shortage of welders. There's a shortage of quality. I taught well over 1,000 students that come through that school, and I could tell you 5-10% of them actually something stuck and they're actually working. You know.
Okay.
The schools where you see a problem, there's always money to be made, right? So there's a lot of money to be made in the education system of teaching welding, and it's not necessarily focused on the individual more than it is as a group. So they're trying to push a bunch of people at a time through these schools pretty quickly, and it's just such a short amount of time to get proficient and perfect at one thing when you're trying everything that it's tough. And every school, it doesn't matter if you're in Texas or you're in Ohio, they have the same weld tests where the industry is completely different.
Yeah.
You know, so I think there should be a more specialized, you know, where you're ever at in the country, that's the type of welding, whatever they're doing, that's where you need to be, and that's where you need to perfect that. You know, if you want to be a pipeliner, you want to work in refineries, go that way, instead of trying to put everything into a bundle.
Yeah.
And get good at nothing, because you get these kids with this certificate that means nothing.
Yeah.
And they say they can weld, and then but they haven't tried it in so long, because that was one of their other classes that they haven't had in. It's just tough for the students, right? And I think if you could probably turn down the cost of a welding school, some of these schools, it's 7.5 months and it's like $30,000. You know, that's tough. Of course, they take whatever grants and government stuff that, you know, they'll take, but I think there is a surge, right? There are those businesses, and some companies are really trying to push the younger generation. And what I see in my own community, Houston, again, being it booming, there's 13-year-olds, 14, 15-year-olds that are welding at the college level. They're already way ahead. Like they could get out of high school and go to work. Like they could skip college and skip trade school altogether and just get back out there. So I know that there is push, and even some of these bigger companies we work with, like Lincoln or ESOP, I know that they're really trying to target that younger audience because they see the need, they see what needs to happen. But what a lot of these younger generation don't know is like it's not one route. You could go be an apprentice with the union, go to trade school, you could just go to work, you could learn at home. Like there's a lot of options, and you do have to find the right one for you. I will say trade schools, well, I did, and it was great for me. So it is a little tricky because it's all just too cookie cutter for me, you know.
How much do you see is on, let's say, the onus of the company? So my company is Tungco, but let's say in the Texas oil patch, like a Halliburton or some of those larger companies, how much are they putting into recruitment, you know, onboarding? Because again, the trades, you know, I'm with you. There's a lot of gaps in the education system to whether are we fully producing, not that people are products, but you understand what I mean by saying that. Once the kid graduates, are they really ready, you know, to clock into a Halliburton or somewhere else? Probably not.
Yeah.
So I often see there's a gap between where the education system is going to take them and then the handoff of me hiring them, and then where that goes next.
There's a lot of companies skipping the trade school. They're just trying to find someone who's willing to show up and work and learn, you know. It's like I'd rather take a clean slate than try to take someone who's like, you know, they think they know what they need to know, but you know, you still have to almost reteach them. So it's almost easier to get someone fresh or get a robot. Get AI involved, you know, and that's what the struggle has been so far. And it's not that AI or robots are taking over your job. If I was a business owner, I would do the same thing.
Sure.
I can't find good help. So I've got to buy one. You know, and it's still a job, still someone's job to operate it. So, and that's the other thing that welders got to be aware of. Like manufacturing is not going to stop for you. You know, you got to learn how to adapt a little bit. Otherwise, 100%. You're going to get left behind.
100%. So talking about AI, where is that coming in automation for welding? Is that a threat, or is that more of an assist? Because we've had robotic welding for decades now, especially in the automotive space. You mentioned, I guess maybe even your little crawlers you were talking about on the pipeline are a form of robotic welding.
100%.
So does AI only improve that, or does that also a threat to making some?
Essentially, right? AI is meant to, whatever you put into it, it's learning. So one of my buddies, he runs an automatic machine that TIG welds stainless steel pipe on a rotator as it welds. Feeds in the wire, the whole 9 yards. And as it welds, it takes all the data and puts it into an AI thing. So it develops its own weld procedure, essentially. So instead of you having to fine tune this setting for whatever it may be, they've got the procedure, it's already written down. The machine knows, you know what I mean? So the AI there is something. And then they've also even got another company we work with, Avacor Benzel. They do AI for welding and inspection. So while there is still a QC or a weld inspector on looking at whatever the robot is interpreting, the machine could come in, lay a bead, and then the AI robot scans it with lasers, comes over it, and it'll detect any discontinuities, anomalies that it sees, and then sends it off to the inspector. So you got a welder and an inspector really all automated. So they're definitely... No, again, manufacturing's not stopping for anyone. They're still using AI. They're still pushing it any which direction they can. And to a point where, like, my buddy says, he's like, I feel like I'm giving this robot all of my knowledge. You know? He's like, it is like, obviously it's benefiting me because he went from a welder to now he's got an engineer title, you know, because he's learned how to use this robot and got really good with it compared to even the guys that run the company with the robot. He's gotten better how to use it because he understands how that puddle needs to look. You know what I mean? Compared to the engineer that built the machine. Anyway, he's like, I'm just like putting in all my secret sauce into this machine, and now they got it, you know? So that's
and could it be, and I'm just thinking out loud here, this may be way off in left field, but could it be that, I mean, obviously we have ways to inspect as the weld is going on per se, but does AI help speed that up and maybe prevent a faulty part, or like?
I don't think it's there yet.
Okay.
You know, I think you haven't seen a whole lot of this quality control AI stuff yet. It's just really easy to get someone there, especially if someone's already looking at it.
Yeah.
You know, check the robot right now. It's just easier to just go look at it.
Yeah.
Right. Get them out there. Go shoot. Now there is automation and stuff into the non-destructive testing side of things for X-ray and ultrasonic. There are some machines out there that you know make the operator and the tech's life a little easier.
Yeah.
But
I think one of the things we're seeing on our end is, for a long time, the brain capacity or the computing capacity of different automation systems, sortation devices, whatever, was limited. So in other words, you could say, well, I've got this table of books here and I've got these shapes, and it would pick up certain ones, but it would be limited in its capacity to be like, well, there's 1,000 shapes on there. What we're seeing that AI is doing is it's more deep learning. So it just keeps going. It doesn't have it really. I'm sure it's not infinite, but we haven't found its limit yet of what it can do. So in other words, if you had a system that cost $1 million and it's like, well, it costs $1 million and it can pick out 2 parts, I'm like, well, I'm not doing that because I've got 50 parts in there that I need it to be able to look at.
Sure.
If it can pick out all 50. And it costs $1 million, well, then maybe I'll take a look at it.
Right.
So for us, we don't see it as a replacement of jobs. We see it as actually making everybody's job much more efficient. It's a tool. Maybe it modifies it just a little bit.
Yeah.
But we're seeing that as a huge win from a manufacturing perspective.
And you know, everyone thinks AI is also like a kind of a saving grace or a godsend, but you can dumb it down too. You put the wrong stuff in it, it learns the wrong stuff too.
100%.
Matter of fact, I go sign into ChatGPT every once in a while and kind of put in some wrong shit, just dumb it down a little bit, keep the odds even, you know? I don't want it to get too smart.
That's right. I love how at the end of all your prompts, it says, and remember, ChatGPT can be wrong.
Yeah. It really can. It was funny. One of an instructor, he has this AI software for teaching welding, and he was like, ask it anything. I was like, all right, what's the tensile strength of a 309 stick rod? And it said 70,000. I'm like, that's not right. He's like, what? I was like, no, it's like 93,000 something. He's like, oh, it's wrong. Someone put some wrong stuff in there, you know? So keep the odds even.
Yeah, you still got to know. Well, man, Austin, it was great having you in Las Vegas in our booth representing weld.com.
Dude, I had a great time.
And thank you for being on Cliff's Notes. And hopefully this is just the first of many interactions and business dealings we can do moving forward.
Sure. Thanks, Cliff.
Take care, man. Appreciate you.
Cliff's Notes. Cliff's Notes. Cliff's Notes. Cliff's Notes.